I recently posted a video in which I was talking about this battery pack. It came with a very cheap tool, Chinese tool, and as ever it was very low cost. Quality wasn't too bad, but I was really criticising the performance of this battery, but also the marketing of the battery was very misleading in what it's supposed to be. Now, I got the usual response in some of the comments. Some were trolls, some just misunderstood the point of the video, and some just wanted to be argumentative. But some people did raise some interesting points, so I want to try and address all of those. I'm not going to address the trolls. I don't really get involved with people who just want to troll and make a nuisance of themselves. But as I say, some of the points were interesting, even if they were based on a misunderstanding of what the video was supposed to be about. Now, I'll start by saying something I've said in many of my other videos, in that I very rarely post a video on something I haven't done a lot of research on. So almost everything I post in my channel I've done extensive testing on. And the same is true of batteries and battery packs. Now, these are packs that I kind of use in tools that I have. I've got a lot of this type of battery pack. I generally try and stick to the same types, but sometimes there'll be a tool available that has its own custom type battery pack, or just a tool I particularly want that is a new manufacturer type that I haven't used before. And then I buy a few battery packs just so I have spares and can use the tool effectively. But I have also done a huge amount of testing on this type of battery. So I have probably 20 tubs like this of batteries I've taken out of packs and tested. And I've done fairly extensive testing on them. Now, if you're interested in seeing that sort of testing, it is fairly involved. It can be fairly tedious if it's not something that you find exciting. But if it's the sort of thing you want to see, let me know. I'll post a few videos on it and see how they go. But I do always pretty much have quite a few tests on the run at any one time, whether it's batteries or equipment or something like that. There's always something being tested. I have kind of touched on this in the past, but the point I'm trying to make here is that it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction to this battery pack. It was in large part due to experience I've had with previous packs and the feeling and the kind of impression you get when you see a pack like this. So I'm just going to address the main points in turn. Now, firstly, someone said, well, I was bypassing the internal discharge control board, so that would have reduced the capacity. No, it wouldn't. It would more likely increase the capacity. We're not getting losses in that board, but just to try and demonstrate that, I've obviously reassembled the pack. I've been using the charger that came with it. You can see got a green light, it's fully charged, and so we'll do a test on this pack in the same way we did in the previous video and see how long it lasts. So the first comment I want to address is someone said that, well, I'm using the cells wrong. You know, these cells are most likely meant for low discharge rates, and so I'm not using them correctly. Well, I didn't select the cells for this tool. This is what was in this battery pack when I purchased it, and it came with the tool. So it's kind of an erroneous comment. It's what came with the tool. That's what I was commenting on. And I also went to the time and trouble to show and explain that I have another identical tool, or pretty much identical tool, that came with this battery pack. This is also a cheap Chinese battery pack, but as I said in the video, this lasts over 3 times longer than this one. So it's not that they're all bad, it's just packs like this that are becoming worse and worse, and as time goes on their performance and their capacity is dropping. So that's the first thing I want to comment on. Then it's not all Chinese battery packs, it's the ones that are, as far as I'm concerned, are being missold, and that was the entire point of my video. The fact that they might be inappropriate cells is entirely my point. I also said that professional battery packs tend not to cause an issue, and then I had someone again wants to be argumentative, saying that, well, the cells I was showing, especially the Bosch ones, are not from a professional range of battery packs. So just to clarify, I thought it was clear enough in the video, but what I'm talking about is branded cells versus unbranded cells. And that's the point of my comment. So all the ones that are from a professional manufacturer that are branded, these all perform, they're all excellent. Even the cheap Chinese one is extremely good. This is now 7 or 8 years old. It's still working extremely well. All the others I'm showing here outperform their specification, every single one of them. So all the DeWalt battery packs, which are probably the best ones, far outperform the specification in their proper use. This is supposed to be a 4 amp hour battery pack. I get about 4.5 amp hours out of this when I test it. So that's under the conditions the tool uses. I do have a cheap knockoff here. This is a knockoff to use on DeWalt tools. Again, a cheap Chinese thing, but this does perform as it's specified. It gives us about 9.2 amp hours, and it works extremely well, and it has been working now for a couple of years. So I have a few of these and they all work extremely well. So it's not just a kind of blanket bombing all Chinese products. The rest I have, again, a lot of these manufactured in China, extremely good. Chinese cheap tools can be good, some not so much. And that, as I'm saying, is my point. Next issue, someone said it's stupid or pointless weighing battery packs. It's the cells that count. Well, yes and no. The bulk of the weight of a pack is in the cells, so you can get a very good idea as to the cells that are fitted by weighing the entire pack, as long as you know how many cells are in the pack. And again, if I go back to these, if I compare the weight of these with their capacity, there's a direct correlation. So I'm fairly confident that weighing an entire pack is a very good rule of thumb to determine how good it is. Now, on top of that, I showed inside this, this is what makes the comment a bit ridiculous, I showed inside this and it's only half full, which means this plastic case is actually bigger than it needs to be. In other words, this plastic case is heavier than it needs to be, and that means that when we weigh the pack, the cells are even lighter than the pack size would tend to imply. So that works against the cells, not for them. Now, I did also state that I believe these cells are not appropriate for this application. That was the point of my video. Had someone contradicting me saying that it's because I'm using them wrong, but like I said earlier, I'm just using the cells that came with the tool, so yeah, it's a bit of an erroneous comment. Had the comment, well, what was I expecting? It's a cheap Chinese pack. Well, as I said, it's not necessarily to be expected. The other cheap Chinese packs I have work a lot better. Having said that, a lot of the cheap Chinese cells I bought do not perform anywhere even close to their specification. It is a minefield, and that's what I'm trying to get across here, that this is not only a minefield, but it's getting much worse, that as time goes on, the cells we're getting imported into this country are getting worse and worse and worse. Not all of them. The ones that are branded seem to be maintaining or improving in quality, but a lot of the ones that we have no way of knowing what the brand is or tracing the brand are getting far worse. I then had a comment saying that, well, it's because of the way the Chinese government oppresses everyone over there, and it's not fair to criticise them. It's because they have to do that to earn a living. Now, that's a strawman argument. That has nothing to do with the video I posted. I'm talking about what we end up with here, not why we end up with them here. Although I have stated in previous videos I've posted about how difficult it must be in some places for them to have to resort to the measures that they do. But I'm not going to go into that here. It's completely irrelevant as far as the point I'm trying to make here is concerned, and that is what we end up with when we purchase something. It doesn't matter why, that's just what we end up with. I had several comments saying, am I sure that they are lithium polymer cells rather than lithium ion? I will open these up before I get rid of the pack to show you what's inside. It's probably not what you expect. And they said that that might be the reason for the low capacity. So just to counter that, because I do not believe that's the case, is I will demonstrate the capacity using the inbuilt controller board. So it's been charged using the inbuilt controller board, and in a few minutes we'll do a discharge as I did in the previous video, but this time going through the onboard controller board, and we'll run it until it shuts itself off, and that will give us a very good analogy to what the tool would do. Now, another point I want to make here, and I kind of touched on this in the video but didn't go into it in too much depth. You can go into this if you want me to do some videos on testing cells like this, and that was that at least one of the cells was getting quite hot, and also when I charged it up it accepted 1000 milliamp hours but only returned about 500. And that wasn't a particularly high current when I did that. That's when I was cycling it on the charge discharge device that I use. It was at 2 amps, which is more than reasonable to get fairly close to the capacity that a cell of this nature should deliver. But I was only getting back half the energy I was putting into it, and it was getting quite hot. And that's another issue. If you've got a device that efficiency is important to you, and especially if they have a large capacity, if you're losing half the power you're putting into it, just when you try and get the power back out of it, not including all the losses in getting the power to the device in the first place, but if you're losing half the power you've put in as part of that charge discharge process, then as far as I'm concerned they're not fit for purpose. You're losing so much energy doing that that it makes the entire use of an electric device pointless if you're using it to replace something else, and especially if you're doing it on the with the argument that it's to be beneficial to anything, because it's just not. You're losing all that energy, then obviously it's very inefficient, and you can work that out. Again, this type of cell has a fairly high internal resistance, so you can work out the losses you should get, and we should be getting a retained capacity. That's the difference between charge and discharge when used within their specification. We should be getting well over 90%, and if you work it out with this, we're getting down about 45%, which is terrible. It's to lose that much energy on something is bad. It's not too bad with a tool like this, bad enough, but if you did it on a larger scale then it would be extremely poor. Okay, we'll take the pack off charge. Now the voltage is slowly dropping, but that's because I've just unplugged it, so you can ignore that. It will settle down over a period of time. But we'll start this running, get the stopwatch going, let's turn the load on, and we'll see how long it lasts for. So if you recall, it lasted I think about 6.5 minutes previously, but we're now running it through its own controller board. Okay, so that's shut off, turn the light back on. So it's lasted a little over 6 minutes, slightly less than it lasted when we were testing it directly, because we were connected directly to the cells before, but very close. So you can see it's not the way I was charging it. This was using the charger that came with the pack, and it's not lasted any longer. So we'll just disconnect this and plug it back in so you can see that it will start to recharge. Probably let it cool down before I fully recharge it. But if we plug this back in, hope you can see the charger over there. It's actually quite hot, but okay, so as you can see, the lights come back on, it's gone back into charge mode. We're going to charge it up just now. As I said, it's quite hot, so I'm going to let it cool down first. Now, I'm not suggesting that every pack you see that looks like this will be the same. So that is quite hot, so I'm not going to hold on to it. But this particular one is not really, as far as I'm concerned, fit for this purpose. It will do the job that I want it to short term. I'm only going to use this tool a few times anyway, but if I bought this for long-term use, this battery pack probably wouldn't be suitable. And that's what the video is about. I'm not talking about the difficult times the people in China have. That goes without saying. What I'm talking about is what we end up with here when we import devices like this. And if they just advertised it for what it is, that would be fine. That's no issue with that. If it said 18 volts, 1 amp hour, that would be fine. But when it's ambiguous and there's no real information, or the information is misleading, that's what I have issue with. Not the fact that whoever's made this has had a bit of a rough time. It's the fact that they're trying to deceive me, and that's what I don't particularly find appealing with this type of device. So hopefully that's clarified the point I was trying to make, which is that these are the devices we end up with. It doesn't matter why they end up here, but these are not really the quality that they claim to be. They're misleading in the way that they are branded, if you want to call this a brand. And if they were just branded and it was clear what they were, this one for example should say 18 volt 1 amp hour. It's actually only about half an amp hour, but even 1 amp hour, it would be far less aggravating than to get what appears to be a big 4 or 5 amp battery pack just to find out it's about 1/10 of that. So that's what I'm getting at. It's not anything to do with what this is, it's what it's sold as, and that's the point of this video.